I would, like to introduce to you all Professor Sharma in a very brief way. Professor G.D. Sharma is a former director of Consortium for Educational Communication, UGC, New Delhi. He is a distinguished economist and he has served as the secretary of the UGC, as a director IIE Pune, and also as a consultant of UNESCO, UNDP, and IIEP Paris. Professor Sharma was awarded the Delete honor sorry Dalit by Nagarjuna University, Andhra Pradesh. He served as a professor and head of higher education unit in NIEPA. He has published 12 books, more than 50 research papers, and several research reports. He has been advising industrial houses for setting up institutions of higher education. Presently, Professor Sharma is the president of Society for Education and Economic Development, New Delhi, which is an organization engaged in research and training in higher education, organization of colleges in India, and also empowerment of women through micro enterprise. Professor Sharma has been, so kind enough for conducting various programs of NIPA. Thank you once again, sir, for sparing your valuable time. And over to you. And then he will be speaking on holistic education and multidisciplinarity. So over to you, Professor Sharma.
Thank you so much for nice words. I think participant might have been listening for since morning, and they must be desiring to ask some questions to begin with. In case they wish to ask some questions to begin with, I would be happy to receive some questions from them. Then I'll begin talking on the syllabus which is provided with regard to holistic education and multidisciplinary orientation. So may I request some of the participants who have been listening since morning to speak out some questions if you are in your mind on this subject.
We had two sessions. This is the afternoon shift, and then we have two
Acha, this
sessions.
is shift beginning. This is beginning now. You've
This
been
is the second one. How we
second one,
have
second one.
on the skill
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. So you have been just one session
yes,
before.
one
So
session.
in case you have some questions with regard to the syllabus given on this, or any question with regard to holistic education, multidisciplinary orientation, I would be happy to receive in to begin with. Then I'll go ahead with talking about what I my views on the subject. Do you have any questions? This is a request to the participant. You are 48, and none of you are interested in raising some question. The first, yeah, go ahead. Who is asking the first question? Okay, in your syllabus, there is a vast syllabus has been given to you. Uh, that is Mad Bhagavad Gita, and then eminent education thinkers on education of the time of 1861 to 1850, and then even up to 1905, and then you have a very old talk thing about the Mad Bhagavad Gita, which is 500 years before Christ, or 200 to 500, we are depending on the those who are talking on the subject about the Mad Bhagavad Gita. So one of the methodology of education during the period Mad Bhagavad Gita, I have given the slides, Sangeeta, if you like, you can upload them. Sangeeta, I have given slides, if you like, you can upload them. Hello? Sangeeta, you left? Anyway, I had mentioned, given the slides regarding this, but if you look into the epic Mahabharata, that is the period when this main uh, aspect of Bhagavad Gita was being said by Lord Krishna. The epic that time, what kind of education system prevailed, that is the real issue, and that we could look over from the education point of view. One of the method through which they followed, of course, Bhagavad Gita followed the question answer. Therefore, I asked for the question answer, but no, none of the people you raised the questions. They Yes, you raised the question. Good. Please go ahead with your
Uh,
question.
Namaskar, sir.
Namaskar.
Sir, just now you mentioned about Bhagavad Gita and the ancient times.
Yeah,
Um, my understanding of the ancient education is a bit limited because I don't have that kind of vast reading.
yeah.
But whatever I've heard from my teachers and as
Mm,
much I have read, my understanding is that in the ancient times also,
mm,
the students were bifurcated by the guru as on the basis of their interests and skills.
mm,
That is, they were diverted into specific lines of not necessarily vocation, but specific subjects which
mm,
interested them more, where they could develop life skills so that
mm.
they could lead a holistic life.
Yeah.
Now, present days, when we are talking about multidisciplinary, how far multidisciplinary approach is
Mm.
going to be successful? That is what I would like to know.
Very good.
Um, Thank you, sir.
Very, very good question. Any other questions? I'm glad that you raised the question. I was waiting for some questions so that it can make me respond and then uh, put my thought process accordingly. Anyway, what you have taken ancient time, I'll talk about ancient time little about it and then link it to the holistic and multidisciplinary orientation. Some information which you shared are fairly right, and I would say how they are right. But we'll talk about Mad Bhagavad Gita and epic time. What was the method followed during that period of education processes? That I would like to share. But if you any other person having questions on this aspect, I would welcome. No? Sangeeta, you should also be ready with the slides which I given you. During that time, you have heard the epic Mahabharata, and one of the great teacher for during that time martial art was the Dronacharya. There is story goes that once the ball fell in the well, and Dronacharya immediately picked up the straw and sharpened it, put one straw on the ball, immediately another straw on the ball, and like on, and he took out the ball. That conveyed two things. One is that innovation, quick response, and at the way the preciseness. Preciseness in terms of sharpening and putting it the wall and one after another straw, another, and then lifting it up. So perfection was one of the method of education that you achieved to the highest level of particular art, particular skill, or particular aspect of it. So that was one of the method of education which the Dronacharya followed. It's not at that moment of time. His student, which is Parthasarathi or Krishna, Arjuna, he was also trained in the same fashion. Focus the target, be precise, and shoot it. So perfection was one of the method of training to the people, and then he did it exactly what was required during the Swayambar period. He put the arrow in the eye of a moving fish. So that is kind of a training which we were giving. That training was one of the method of educating. That was the time, because martial art was one of the aspect. Other aspect we'll share here, which became very popular in the Mahabharata epic, and that is how you find that one of the method of education was that innovation, quick response, sharp and focus. No, there is another story along with this. You must have heard about Eklavya, that you can self-learn. You can self-learn, which has been talked by many people with the word distance education. You can
Yes, sir.
self-learn also. So that story also goes about the self-learning method of it during that period. And Eklavya learned exactly the same kind of preciseness and focus. And there is another story with regard to the end of the Eklavya's skill of shooting, because that also shows the governance structure of that time, that only the those who were in the martial knowing the in the governance of the system, they can only have. And even the good student who will learn on its own by putting his image or self learn about he is not allowed to go further about it. That's the kind of time of that period where you find that the education process is going on. One was the very perfect way of achieving certain train skills. Other was focus method of education. Third was the kind of preciseness of our. At that moment, you don't find any kind of question answer issues. When the Arjuna and Drona, there is no question answer issues. It's giving skill how to do another thing. But when it comes to the battlefield, that is the kind of Bhagavad Gita where they are talking about it. There's a altogether different way of knowing such a kind of doubt which the student has, and asking questions, and Krishna Parsarthi responding to all those questions. So question dialogue was one of the method of teaching. Teaching means educating, giving discourse. It was not a simple discourse by the Krishna on all the aspect, but there was a question by the Arjuna, and then he responded, and therefore you find that the methodology of education or educating, one way is the skill part was given without any questioning, etc., reaching them to the highest level. It could have been self-learned also, but when it comes to Bhagavad Gita, it's kind of Krishna educating by dialogue, by question answers, another thing. And then you can see Bhagavad Gita, very important messages message with regard to the education. And one of the messages for education is equanimity or sit prajna, where the you don't we are not moved by emotions only, but you are moved by several other sectors. So this is a basic of what you can at that time. This is a 500 year before BC, or the two, which is a difference maybe of opinion about 200 before BC. That's the kind of issue which they were. You can know more about the Bhagavad Gita by one of the very important book written by Lokmanya Tilak, Gita Rahasya. In fact, Vivekananda has also talked about it, and one would know more about the other aspect of it, nirvana aspect, sthit prajna aspect, another aspect, pursarth, and several other aspects. We are not going to deliberate on those here, but we are going to what is the education messages which are coming from that period of time. Now, the question which has been asked and rightly asked, which I also thought that how education system moved ancient India, which was it is not an ancient India. Mother Bhagavad Gita is prior to the ancient India. It is the period which is 100 to 500 years back. Ancient India, if you look at the when the three universities were set up in the in on this part of the land, and the three universities, and there are several centers within India, and those centers, the method of education was somewhat different. One was the skill. Skill means shiksha part. Other was the vidya part. Shiksha part was the kind of training in metallurgy, training in architecture, training in the other thing, or training in the health aspect. This is why training in surgery aspect, training in which became part of the shiksha, doing things for the living being. That's what the kind of part of training, and very skill. And therefore, you find we might correctly, somebody might have informed the shiksha part was also not placed at one single. It was not a factory model of education, which I'll share with you little later. That it was a question of talking about the self, and then word and other thing which was a part of the what is the wisdom part of what was considered to be vidya. Therefore, there's a vidya dadati vinayam. Vidya liberates the pen. Vidya sa vidya vimukte. That was the period when you find the specialists in several areas. Like you heard something about the Ayurveda, and within Ayurveda you heard several names about the Ayurveda. So those students who were interested, they were giving basic of everything, basic of Vidya, and then they were moving towards wherever such education was found. So there is some story there about 1,500 such centers were there during that period, and they were providing education of different level for the people, and therefore it was a more focused on the basic education. Was Vidya was given, that's why they were called Vidyarthi, and that was having both aspect of it, Shiksha part and Vidya part. Vidya part means knowing something which is liberating you, knowing something which is good for the human being, knowing about nirvana, other aspect of the life and other thing. That was Vidya part. Other part was the training, skill, knowledge, etc. of doing things, living being. So whatever information you get from some of the person, there is stated to be a different method of education during that time, because that's not in your syllabus. But I thought that I'll respond to your question. You rightly heard that it was a model where the basic education in terms of language, in terms of mathematics, in terms of basic thing was given at a basic level up to, let's say, 10 years of age. But after 10 years, it was wherever the person excelled or shown the interest, then he himself chose the teachers, and then he said, I will go and work on that. And there are separate centers for that. There was a stated metallurgy center in south part of India. There was a Ayurvedic center in other part of India. So that sort of thing were. And even after doing, when the three universities came, where many centers came together on the three universities during that period. Ancient was before three universities. Let me tell you, three universities were 1,200 years of that, 1,200 years BC. So that you find, but it was before that. But when three universities came, many scholars, many thinkers came at one place, and people from India and other part of the came to learn. So these three universities were there, and there were several centers, 8 or 9 centers, Vallabi and other things which you find, they were there at that moment of time. They were specializing in certain areas. They were specific, and if you like to do the engineering, you would go for to a person who was excelling in that, and he was teaching other. And then he had another set of people. You know, some of the centers had a student one for 500 to 1,500 of that kind. Then people asked the question, how could they teach so many? They had teaching assistants. So teaching assistant would take the care of the young. So 10th standard student will teach the 5th standard student, or so on. And that sort of system was availing. So it was teaching. The three universities, when they came at one place, many scholars from different subjects, mathematics, astronomy, astrophysics, literature, other thing, or even philosophy of life and other, they all came on one center, and a lot of big library was built. And even at that time, library was also very big. One of my friend um, who was working on Rigveda, Dr. Singh, he was in NCRT earlier. He informed me one day that look at during the Vedic period, that period, uh, library was in three stories, and that library was being used by the people during that period. The story, that means the construction level, construction or kind of engineering, or which we call civil engineering, was already up to that level. So you find that that was a period. That period is gone. Even that period of three universities also now history in the system, and how this thing has changed. We'll talk about later in this. But there is a major change came. Let me share with you, and I'll now come to the your other part of the syllabus. I added one part which is the Mahatma Gandhi. I'll talk to you now. What change came? That is the very important aspect to learn. What has happened that during that period, the development was through one source of energy, that is human animal source of energy. And you find development took place during with the help of human animal sources of energy. So you find every field, it's not single, every field you take human endeavor. In every field you can philosophy of life, health, doing certain things. That's why you find a lot of construction work is being done with the kind of masonry they call masonry, they don't call engineering these days. But the fact is that development was there throughout the world. It's not only we were little, this part of land was little higher developed, because they had already started working on various subjects. All subjects you can take it, they were there. So you find that they were helping in this. The next question came up, and that came around in 1600 or 1700. That was a major change. You might have heard the first breakthrough in a new sources of energy.
Please message me. I will share it. Sir,
First,
sir, yeah, I was just away because my student Viva was going on. So now it's coming.
you can put the slides
Yeah,
there if you
slide.
like to.
So should I ask them to on the slide?
Yeah, yeah, you can
Yes.
put it. Now,
Sure,
since
sure.
he has asked the question, I responded to question.
Yes,
So
yes.
you can put the side. So what
Yeah,
has
yeah.
happened
Sure, sure.
during this period? The change came during 1670 or around that. And that was the period when first time they discovered the mechanical source of energy. Mechanical source of using the steam to draw power from the water from the mines and then producing. So this completely changed the process of production distribution. This source of energy was mechanical one. Earlier source of energy was the human and animal, which tires, which works the rhythm with the nature and other thing. And this mechanical source of energy, you put more coal and put water, and you can run it for 24 hours. So that changed the system. And those countries which harness this technology, this harness this new source of energy, they started bringing major change in the system. And the first industrial revolution came when this new source of energy came. New source of energy for using the mechanical source of energy for production and distribution and large scale distribution, etc. And that time the factory model of education also started, what I call factory model of education, wherein you say, since these industries would require more number of person earlier with basic education, other thing to man the machines and etc. So large number of people were needed and large number of people were engaged and therefore education was to be given to large number of people. So school system and other thing. That was the first industrial revolution. Second industrial revolution again expanded certain things, and you find this all development started, and the factory model of education started coming, and many people joined this system, that basic language, mathematics, certain things, etc., and then certain engineering aspect of is to be given, certain medical aspects. So development started with the help of new sources of energy and breakthrough in the new sources, from steam engine to electricity. That became one major change. Now, what has steam engine has further made the change? Beside the communication system change, you were going slowly, kind of people could not really cross the sea with the animal, the human source of energy, people drawing the ships, etc. So they started, and this new source of energy changed the dynamics of development within the world. Or do you find here the change came as a response to people coming to many parts of the world through the sea, and through sea they came with communication came bigger, and how it became. That's why you find people came to India. Vasco da Gama came to India. Later on, East India Company people came, because it was first facilitated by the new sources of energy, that is the steam, and steam to communicate through the ships could travel long distances, etc. There is very interesting article in Economist published long back, and that article I would share with you to look into it. That article showed that people, when this kind of energy source came, they produced a lot, and then they wanted to take the production to the China. They took on the ship to the China, and Chinese king was told that here are the product. Sir, would you like to use it, and you would like to take it, and we would like. Then Chinese king said no, it is not of our use, and therefore you can go back. And they went back. After some years, they again went with uh, the shipload of goods, and then they went with the guns, and that was a new discovery during that time. One was new source of energy, other was the discovery of firearms. This is guns. And then you would find that many changes started coming. They went with the guns, and they said, look here, either you take it, otherwise. So power, trade with the power, that became. So the change came. This was reported in the Economist long back in article, and that also shows a factual. If you look back at your history of India, or in terms of how Britishers came and how this new firearm became more powerful in terms of in the warfare, or in any kind of, which later on the Second and First World War they did it. So point is that a change came with this and new source of energy with the power that came. In India also, that became very. This East India Company came, and then they started putting this thing. Now you would find that they found there is a story about education system of India and how education system needs to be changed. And then I'll talk about the three major thinkers on the subject. And when they came to East India Company, and you must have heard the name of Macaulay and the Adler and etc. They found that education system in all over India was fairly advanced, fairly developed, and people were what you said about education system going on several places where specialization were there and all these things. And they found it's very difficult for us to rule them unless we change the education system. That was the beginning of the change, not only with the trade but with the force, which is very important. So the East India Company in fact became had that kind of this thing. So they worked for a long period, not a short period, to overhaul the education system of India and undermine the education system of India through a method of saying that it's no good and all those things. In every field they try to work out. And so, but since they became powerful in terms of the firearm with them, and then East India Company being taken over by the British, finally British rule came, and during that period, earlier to that period, you would find that education system started changing, and first three universities were set up in India in port towns of Madras, Calcutta, and uh, uh, in Bombay. So you'll find that these three universities became very important for the Britishers to communicate what they would like Indians to take it at that time. And you find that most of the thinkers which you will be talking about it were the product of the both education system, and that's why you find this change would come. Now I'll try to take it to the aspects of the how this came. This 1857, and you would find your thinkers. One could start with the Vivekanand, and can we go to Vivekanand? The story. Next slides. Next to
Yes, yes,
next slide.
yes, yes. This is
Swami Vivekananda. You find we 1857 we set up the universities, and that time education was already overhauled by the colonial ruler, and you'll find, but they were all educated in English education. Vivekanand story is quite well known, and also in India. And as a youth, we were always inspired by his the image. In fact, as a student, when they were asking that give 10 rupees for building the rock memorial for the Vivekanand, so everybody gave another thing. So Vivekanand was a period, in fact, most of the thinkers were period of the colonial, the 1863 and 1902. Now, that period was a period they saw the kind of problems which India was facing at that moment. Although he talked about the religion in American religious parliament, but much more concern which he had shown about the situation prevailing in India, and he wanted youth, and he traveled to various parts of the country, lecturing in particular south part of the country in Madras and other things, and he expressed his feeling about the kind of changes which the education system required, because British has already established themselves on two ways. One is the what is British, what is that is the best, and they also use the corporal punishment. They also use the making fear in the minds of the students, people, and etc. So you would find those who are studying. So that system they had already seen. There's other states system also outseen. So Vivekananda believed that kind of education, it's a subjugation education, which Gandhi later on talked, the subjugation of people, another thing. So you find that these thinkers had a serious view about things happening in India at that moment of time. Of course, one is was the religion, but other was the kind of subjugate education to subjugate the masses was going on, and so they were responded to that kind of situation, and therefore they say education system should be really responding to Of course, the social, what is the physical, one of the things which you used to talk sound mind and sound body, which is a popular statement which is given to all the students when he was talking in Madras, during that period. The physical was equally strong because they were made to be physically weak because that time resources were taken away, and that's why that. So one of the concern 1862, even after the establishment of first three universities in 1857, the concern which was shown that one should be physically strong and intellectually also, and social and moral aspect, the three are morals. So education should help the student: physical, intellectual, moral, social, moral, and spiritual development. That should lead to the kind of thing. Why they said so? Because they know the system is really subjugating the people. The social concern was very high with the Vivekananda, of course, other than religious concern, explaining the Vedanta and other things. That was one aspect of it. The other aspect was his social concern was very deep. I happened to read Vivekananda, and I was then reading the Vivekananda. I was really sometimes jumping when he touched the heart in his writing. So his concern was more beside that change is needed in education system, which is one side the Britishers were trying to, colonial ruler were trying to subjugate the people, subjugate the mind of the few student. So he was all the time concerned. Therefore he asked for three dimension of education: was the physical, intellectual, social. And social concern was equally strong with this. The word which he used, the sorrow of the downtrodden, because that time exploitation was of a highest order. It was rooted in the, and people were not really knowing the kind of thing which was happening. Various evils in society, there was evils initially with the system, evils caused by the system of education there. And these evils were, he said, the poverty in general, because exploitation was going on in general. Poverty happened during that period with the nation, and that is the concern which he had showed. Widows stewards, because that was our social stigma with us, and we were also believing in some kind of wrong processes of social situation. Women was not respected, and not women was also not respected throughout the Europe and throughout other countries. You must know they have been treated as a object of control. So do you find that tears in the women, particularly in our country, also this was the situation. Ignorance about many things, because there many were which we call blind faiths, etc. becoming. So he was very much concerned about tyranny of authority. That is the that is the where everybody in this, the thinkers which you talked about, has talked about tyranny of authority over the weak. This problem has been very strong during that period. That continues in many ways in various countries, as in within. And untouchability, that was the. So social concern, education lead to responding to these social concerns, which was very important. And one of the very important, that you have to liberate yourself. You have to think about the kind of social problem, and the education should be such that should elevate, that should liberate the people. And Savidya Vimukte, that kind of uh, thing for there. And to remove these evils, the first duty is to educate the people. That is that our education people, because from 90% of educated people to become very few people in the system. So his concern was that. So Vivekananda came during the period. You find the 1863 and 18, subsequently also you find other thinkers came, and he said what sort of teacher should be there, who should, what kind of qualities of a teacher should be there. Next slide. He was
Next slide.
he was very much concerned who should be, what is the quality. And nowadays also one thing, so what should be quality of teacher, and who should become a good teacher. Quality of teacher is the first condition, is a spiritual, the feel and emotionally committed. Spiritual means he should be emotionally committed to his profession. And then and that's why you find that emotionally committed professors are best teachers, best thinker. They inspire the people. So his conservative teachers should be emotionally committed to ideas which they are expressing, emotionally committed to the thinking about the, and the kind of thinking education he wanted, a social response, social concern about it. So that should be committed. Necessary condition there is that teacher must be true. Honesty of purpose should be there. Many times we have become dishonest about it. There is one good book, Seven Sins of Teaching Profession. My mentor used to talk to me that Amrik Singh, that there are seven sins of teaching profession. There was a book he was referring to it. So true, a teacher should be true. What is a teacher should be have honesty of purpose. If he doesn't know, he doesn't know. He has to tell that I don't know. Once my daughter asked me one question long back, that what was before Big Bang. And frankly, for speaking, I didn't know what was before Big Bang. One day, Professor Jaspal came to my room. We were discussing, and I said, "Sir, can you tell me what?" He was a physicist, so he knew many things about it. So I said, "What was before Big Bang?" They said, "Have you heard that slogan, that slogan that before that there was nothing, nothing, nothing." So that was a answer which I said that yes, before Big Bang there was nothing. So that was a Rig Veda sloka is there that he shared with me. So if you don't know, then one day my daughter asked who invented minus, and I didn't know, frankly speaking. I looked into encyclopedia, and after some days I told this is the invented during that period of time. So this is where you have to be honesty of purpose and honesty of our knowledge, and not bragging about the things which are not. That was is a basic concern of teaching profession. Third condition, which is a motive, should be teachers. Love of teaching. You do it for the love of teaching. And motive should be clear. And this motive aspect was taken up by MK Mahatma Gandhi later on, which I'll talk to how he questioned the motive of education processes in India during the colonial period. The respect for teacher is openness to learn from teacher. That should be that these are few conditions which he said that was a propagation of his thinking on the education system. One is how what should education respond, that one should physically strong, emotionally committed, then also you should be intellectually sound, then concern for the society. That was the social concern was very much there, and the free mind, which you would find next thinkers were equally responding to those issues which were there. They were all contemporary at that period. Can we take next slide? Rabindranath Tagore was also the, you can see 1861 to 1941. He died little earlier. Vivekananda died little later. He came in 1863, but he came in 1861. And Vivekananda was also responding to the situation at that moment of time. And because the system was subjugating the masses, they had the opportunity to learn the English education. At the same time, they knew the systems in education in India, so they were highly concerned about it. So Tagore was equally concerned. Not only Tagore concerned, he was trying to implement what was he thought the right education processes. So one of the change which came, Vivekananda talked about discourse, gave other. I hear the Tagore wanted to respond to existing system of education by alternative system of education. So alternative system of education, he came forward, and then he wanted that education should be learned in a different kind of a environment than what is being given, not in factory model of education, which was going in education in many parts of the world, but a kind of education in a different environment. So he set up a Santiniken as a response to the alternative system of education and tried to propagate his viewpoint on the subject. So you would find that what he says, I try to arouse, he says that link with the nature, educate the people through the playway, and then now people talk of playway education, etc. But that he was trying to link with the nature, storytelling, and other things that bigger. So what is it? I try to announce the interests of the things, all things, in the nature's beauty and the surrounding villages, and also literature through the play thing. What is I educate through a way of communicating narrative, play of story, play of this thing. That was the kind of, and this and in listening to the music and natural manner, and not through the merely classroom teaching that was going on all over the factory. I call factory model of education that was going on. So he thought that it should be nature's environment, and that was a very great change. And he said that I'll try to implement his alternative. One was the British system going on education, and those were following that. He said the alternative system of education, and that's what he set up a Santiniken. And you would find his thrust was same, responding to that contemporary situation of that time. And then you find that he spoke about, and you must have heard very important poem which he wrote about the take my God Lord, thinking and liberate the mind of people, which he says that very important, that uniqueness of the individual, he says, is a great, because the uniqueness has in it the essential element of universality. That's what kind of thing. Therefore, in the field of education, freedom is required. That is very, the system was not giving freedom at that moment of time. Freedom is required in the development of individual and personality. So he said, so in my institution, I try to make provision for these three aspects, and you must carefully listen to these three aspects. The freedom was very important for this. Education system was not allowing them to think. That's why you find I found no question was asked. They were asking the, if you had free, you would ask several questions about it. So freedom of mind, which is very important. Now subjugation was going on, people were made not to think, not to question, etc. Freedom of mind was very considered. Freedom of heart, you can say what you would like to say. Freedom of will, that's what he tried to say, that freedom was becoming very important for him, and that is, he talked about freedom. So Rabindranath Tagore implemented what he wanted to say, propagate. He tried to do it, Santiniketan, and his main thrust was freedom of thought, freedom of will, freedom of heart. And that's why his poem, very famous poem, is that, oh my Lord, take my country to freedom of thinking, freedom of thoughts, etc. Where the mind without fear, exactly, you know the rhythm. Very good. You know the without fear and Java. You go continue without fear and Java. That was the poem which became very well known to the world and India also. And if you look at the Gita which he wrote, in fact, that all those gets reflected when he got the Nobel Prize for this. And very interesting thing, let me share you politically also. Mrs. Gandhi studied in Santiniken, and one day he led the procession against the system, and he didn't discourage her, and he continued to encourage her doing that way. So you find that not only believed, but they did it, acted upon it. So Rabindranath Tagore acted upon, and then spoke about to the thing, the poem which he was just showing. That poem you should read sometime, and it would inspire you in many ways. So Rabindranath Tagore was very clear on kind of education, which is the alternative model of education which he wanted to give. The education system should make the freedom of mind, freedom of heart, and freedom of will. You can think about it. Should not subjugate you, it should not question you, it should not stop your mind to think. That was the issue which Vivekanand, and that was the period of 1861. First university came in 1857. Education system was already set in, shaped in by Macaulay's thought process, and that's why they were responding to that situation. Next slide.
Next slide, please.
Hmm. So Rabindranath Tagore, I said that not consider the behavior of teacher to be, here is again, Vivekananda also talked of what is the condition of good teacher, and he also talked about the condition, the better quality of a teacher. What very succinctly and very tellingly, he said that behavior of teacher to be, not to be impulsive. And you don't have to really teach it not to be. This is not to be impulsive, insulting, and punishing. The corporal punishment was regular in the schools and colleges during that period, and also the insulting people if he doesn't know, the insulting, undermining, humiliating. That was so. He said that teachers should not be impulsive. It is not, has not come here, and should not be insulting to the student, punishing. And in his very important statement, which is true for all times, that because the thought that whatever it was, he thought whatever it was, the state system or the education system, strict governance policy was proof of the incompetency of the ruler. Whether you are a teacher or you are a ruler, it is incompetency. If you try to use the force, if you try to use the strict governance, then you are not. It should liberate the people. So you find it, they were product of that period, where things were becoming worse in a society. And 1861 to 1860, he died little early. Vivekananda died little later, but he had the opportunity to interact with the other pair. So next slides we can take it. Now here also came another thinker on that plane. It was same 1861, 1946. You would find this was the period when there were alternative to the going on education in that country. One side, expansion of university education as given 1857, three universities, and teaching the British history, British the literature and other thing, even geography and all those things which were there on that moment of time, because curriculum initially were decided by London University. Pandit Manohar Malia also responded to this situation. He added a few aspects on this. One of the aspect was that he also talked about three types of education. Holistic means you should be physically strong, mentally strong, spiritually strong, including the physical education and growth, spiritual growth. Spiritual, they mean emotions. It means concern for the society, concern for the life, concern for the living being. So that kind of thing which he talked. And he talked about character building. Character building means you should, through the process of education, you teach all those things which are there, so, the freedom. You teach about the how to educate and all this. So that's why the build uh, uh, strong, again a strong character was very strong, because that time a whole process were trying to undermine the people, undermine the characters. So there was a strong character, everybody talked about it. Moral values in students. He believed that education could not only impart knowledge but also teach students the importance of integrity. That is very important. Honesty, again, that these are perennial values. In fact, integrity, honesty, and social responsibility. Here also, Vivekananda also talked about social concern. You find Rabindranath also talked about social concern. He also talked about social concern, because social concern was very important and responsibility for at that moment. That's why you find that time of literature, if you look at, everybody talked about change in this. So here, what when holistic development of Malia believed is the holistic development of students, including the physical. Same thing you'd find all over mental. Vivekananda also talked. He also talked spiritual growth, and the spiritual he believed, as I said, emotions and commitment, honesty of purpose, etc. Believed in education should not. He has added one or two important activity aspect of it. You'd find not only to develop the intellectual emotions and the social aspect of the student student personality, physical knowledge. Maria believed also, but education should also focus on the theoretical knowledge and aspect, but also on the practical aspect. Here he added the practical use of education in the social life, practical aspect. I say he added a practical aspect of education, which using it. One was the intellectually developing, emotionally developing, etc. Now how to use it in the social life. That was in life. So practical aspect of training and the skills development. He believed in the student should be taught skills that would enable them to become self-reliant. That question was also then, because the system was more making independence and contribute to the economy. That was a period when how do we contribute to the economy of the rural people, economy, the society, etc. So practical aspect, using the knowledge to the application aspect, that became one of the very important feature. You find as the things develop, everybody responded to the basic aspect of holistic education, but he also came to the application aspect of practical aspect of education during that period. Next, and he not only talked about it like Tagore. That was the period when people wanted to not only talk but also demonstrate, but also do it. So Madan Mohan Malviya went around and then established Banaras Hindu University, and with great effort. And that effort was, you might see in one story I learned about it, I saw it. When he was requesting wealthy people, saints, he wanted to get some munificence from them, and he wanted to build the BHU. Then one of the saints gave him two pairs of shoes, and see the humility of person. He took it and went away. He didn't even speak anything. and that made the change in the system. Everybody wanted to contribute to the setting up a university, and he contributed. And they had not only thought about it, but how it is doing. Then gave an alternative system of education during that time. Alternative way, Tagore gave alternative system of education. Pandit Manomohan Malia also gave alternative system of education, and then he added practical aspect of it, which was which would lead to which you would find in when Gandhi came. He also added that part of practical, how it should be related. So that kind of development which is in. Can we take the next slide? So nationalism, as everybody talked, clear nationalism did not come during that period, which was at the period of the Vivekananda, at the period of Tagore. They were talking indirectly, directly to freedom and other thing, but he talked about nationalism, that we should try to promote the nationalism, means India, the India thing, kind of Bharat, that word which Malia was a staunch nationalist and believed that education should promote patriotism, national consciousness, this national consciousness feeling about it. He believed that education should install sense of pride, which is again love for the country, and the student should social reform. Again, social reform was a very issue at that time. Social concern was a very important issue of that time, and they did it. He did that, and they tried to do it in a practice in terms of doing it at not only talking about how the Malia believed that education should be a tool uh, for social reform. You heard social reform issue with Vivekanand, you heard the social reform issue with the Tagore. This was the issue because that was the period when the situation was getting worse and worse, and therefore everybody talked about social some of the reforms, some of the aspects were the inherent over a period of time, some of the acts were inculcated during that period. So this social reform issue was very important, that it should be used for eradicating social evil, which you find casteism, communalism, which had come up during that time, and discrimination means equity aspect. Discrimination should be there. So they set up a system and educate the people in that manner. So not only talk, not only propagated that ideas, etc., but Rabindranath Tagore and Malviya set up a system, BHU and Santinikan, they were all product of thinking of the eminent people and great people of our country, great sons of our country, which they did it great in a next slide. Next slide. Activity based, as I said, that he was talking of practical aspect, he added the practical activity based learning. Malviya also believed in learning should be practical, not just theoretical. That sort of thing is he has also talked about. He believed the corporate, this is another aspect you heard in the Mahabharata, Eklavya, self-learning, etc. Other people did not talk about it, but he talked about cooperative learning, peer group learning, which is there has been a concerned method of competitive things, but here they were of the view that cooperative learning, and it's very important method of learning. The cooperative learning helps students develop the important social and communication skills, and it encourages to work collaboratively, self-learning, etc. He also talked about self-learning. So collaborative learning, there was self-learning, which we talked, it was in Mahabharata also, but self-learning has talked, but much more as you proceed, you find that Malviya added a practical aspect to it. Of course, they talked about the usefulness of this, too, but the economy aspect was the other thinker also talked. But education should be holistic in that sense of the term. There should be concern that earlier I said etc. And Vidya part was this social concern, other thing, wisdom, and etc. So that was, and self-learning was, and collaborative learning, new aspect was added in method of education, etc. Next slide. Aurobindo Ghosh is another very interesting thinker on this. He also came in 1872 and lived up to 1850, and there's a very interesting story about him. He was teaching English in Baroda, and his brother was also tortured, and he was put in the jail also for his rebellion activity. He was a rebel. In fact, he was a rebel, and he was jailed, etc. When he came out of jail, he in fact renounced all those things, and he went to Pondicherry, which was at that moment of time, it's a territory which was neither in the French occupation, etc. So though you find he went to Pondicherry, and then with a group of persons around him, and then he started propagating new system of education, method of education, and the same response, because things were basically trying to put through education, subjugation, loyalty to the ruler, and all those aspects. He responded in terms of the spiritualism, and that through spiritualism, spiritualism was taken as very important method. In Tagore and other people also took the Vivekananda also spiritualism was taken in Arvindo Ghosh also in that sort. So balance must be struck. What he said is between the faculties of memory, which is our faculty, which is a part of. Now you find that little more of scientific way of thinking has come. Imagination, perception, and reason, which are the edifices of thought. What gives you memory? Memory is a part of your learning in the past, which is in your mind, and then you imagine about what is happening, how it's happening, or anything. And perception now means observation of the day, and reason, which are the edifice of thought, which gives you on which thoughts are built, and the knowledge and the tools of the material used for the education. So that should be taken as a part of the method of education processes. What should be taken as a first is the you have a memory of various kind, and imagine, and then have perception, mean observation, and reason means think, logical, and that should make the edifice of your thought process, and then you try to. In his view, memory, judgment, and creative powers are ever growing. He said that it is what the people used to say, and that also has to be true at those old days, that there is only one thing which cannot be stolen, that is the education. There is only one thing which grows over a period of time, with that's education. That is where he said that it's a judgment, creative powers are ever growing faculties that give a boost to the education. So that's that only that is the thing which would grow, and that would give a boost to the education. That should be encouraged. That should be helped through the process of education and thought process. Arbindo emphasized on the education should be imparted in accordance with the needs of the modern life. Again, he said that things are changing and you should learn how to change it, because mechanical source of energy was coming and you should know what the. In fact, Vivekananda also told Jagdish Chandra Bose that you should patent your findings, so that they knew what things are going, what kind of development was taking in the world. You should try to look into the modern aspect of it, and therefore believe the education should create such citizenship. That's a very important thing. We have very poor citizenship concept in many of the countries, and in our India also, who are dynamic and able to face any challenge in modern society. Citizenship is a very big concept. Other day I told somebody, either the ruler decides to do something good and for the people of the good, and other thing, otherwise it is citizen, they have to demand for the good. One of the question which came other day about I said that it is for the teacher student to demand that why I have to compete for one seat for 10,000 students to compete. You provide the seat for education, we would like to. In other country they have surplus seats. So that is where the challenge come of citizenship. Citizenship means I am the owner of this. I am the part of this state land, and that's why I have certain rights, and everybody has to respect the right. That have been, you can say, replication of the rebellion mind in him, and rightly so. So that's why he said that citizenship concept should be very clearly engrossed in the system. Another thing. Next slide. Now I come to the new person. He came in 1893, little later than all those people, and that time freedom movement feeling was already working in this kind of thing. He was the person who questioned the frontal question. There all other person questioned indirectly, wanted to give the alternative system of education. Gandhi questioned the system frontally. He immediately said that the education which is being given by is born in sin. If you like, I published in the college post. He clearly says is one of the paragraph. He also toured all the country and he talked about education system. It's an education system which you are receiving now that is a born in the sin. Born in the sense that it is meant to subjugate people instead of liberating the people. Sa Vidya Vimukta kind of a statement was not there, and therefore he frontally asked. He was ready to be jailed for that purpose. He had mastered the art of questioning and mastered the art of putting people in a difficult situation in South Africa after learning. Of course, all were product of education and modern education again, tell you from. So he asked the questions of that. He frontal attack on the education system given by Macaulay at that period of time. So do you find that he's questioned several things, and those things which really, if you like to say, is that from he also talked about three things, and Nait Alim was basically in response to the existing education system. That was a three things, that is heart, mind, skill, all the three aspects which many of the people talk. The child should be free and and universal education should be given. Age is up to certain age, free and universal education should be given. But he also talked about what should be the nature of education, should employ the craft and access. That's another practical aspect of it. What it was being used. He basically said it should be inculcating all the three things, which is called holistic in the sense that intellect, physical, emotional, and spiritual, all these aspects, whether the child should develop the human values in the child. That was also one of the very important contribution, which is social concern. It's lighter than social concern. Social concern is the responding to the people, but larger issues of human values, which are very important. Dynamic citizen, because citizenship has become very important during the create a useful and responsible and dynamic, means who is able to education all the Indian hidden powers, and the child should be able to develop the according to the community of which he is part of integral part of it. So his was taking a child should be educated in all the three aspects, which is the physically, and that's why Nait Alim focused on the craft and other thing. So harmonious development of child, body, mind, heart, and soul. Soul means spiritual part of it. That's what he talked. So all education should be imparted through the productive card. That's why the economically he said that anything which you do, it should lead to product. When they talked about takli and yarn, etc., where they gave the psychomotor ability to the student, but along with the psychomotor ability, it also gave the method of spinning and then product. When it came out as a student, we did all those things. We also did the craft and other thing. So you will find that at the end of there is a product. At the end, I make the few flowers through the craft and take it home, and it becomes. And when you do that time the takli business, that yarn pulleys were taken, and that can be used for anything. So on one side you develop the psychomotor skills, other side your productivity. So education lead to application lead to productivity. It should not be the what you call a corporate led that uh, playway things in terms of the uh, several thing khilonas, etc. Things are given. You wanted that it should be developed in that manner. So anything which you do, it should lead to some kind of productivity. Next, education with the practical and skill and other thing. Education should be made self-supporting. That's why you were talking that it should be made. And so it a continuity, the stability, the sustainability aspect was very important for some productive work, and education should lead to the economic development, economic independence. That was where we were getting independent. We still are dependent on many ways. So how do you take it? Now people are talking about he take education should lead to the application lead to economic development, and it should be independent. Self-reliance was one of the for the livelihood. That became very important concern for him because from social concern to the economic concern became education 1893 to 1848. In 47 we got the independence through the process of frontal frontal questioning to the British ruler in many ways, and by that time a lot of good ground was led by early thinkers, and he was a person who, and that started changing. How much of it happened, but these people were all talking of holistic in that sense of the term and doing. So we'll stop here, and then I'll come to the multidisciplinary aspect. If you have any questions up to this time, I'll welcome the questions, and then I'll move out to the holistic aspect of education, that multidisciplinary aspect of education. Please go ahead with your questions. And you must ask the question. If you don't ask, then I would say that you are still in the colonial period. Yes, please go ahead. You are 66. I expect 6 questions at least. You are 59 right now.
There are 66. There
Good
is a
evening,
question.
good evening, sir.
Yes. Yes, Anita.
Uh, Sir, how can we inculcate the students the philosophy of Gita in the classroom
What?
practically?
Beg your pardon?
Sir, how can we inculcate the philosophy of Gita in the classroom teaching?
Uh, uh, I still didn't get your question clearly.
She is asking, sir, how we can inculcate the philosophy of Gita in teaching the student. That is the question. Huh? Yes.
Very good, very good. I'll give you some quiz. I given a developed a quiz for the Gita, and you go through the quiz and you'll yourself respond to that. And that quiz will tell you how to go about implementing it. So you would when I given some quiz to Sangeeta that she can give the quiz how you can implement this aspect. It's it's there are ways of it. You should have a particular thing to share the ideas, share the thinking.
Okay,
I'll share you the one very interesting story which happened with us when I was
okay,
doing my graduation in
okay, sir.
the political science, English, and economics. One of our teacher of political science, he visited Hague, and Hague was not in our Hague constitution was not in our class, our syllabus, but he spoke about Hague, and he also spoke about system of Hague and other thing. I said one of the quality of a teacher is that if he knows something new, he would definitely like to share with the student. The sharing is the real character of a teacher. So you would find that not that you have to tell that you read another thing, but there are instances when you are teaching physics, or when you are teaching economics, when you are teaching political science, or you are teaching any subject, there are references. Yes, I gave you references, and nobody. We talked about education system. When you talk about education system, did you have to also see how self learning was prevailing at that mountain? What is preciseness? Told you the story of Dronacharya, and what the dialogue process adopted even in a very difficult time. Difficult time is battlefield means a life battlefield. You can take it. What was the and question answer took it. The what goes inside is a deeper aspect which we can see it, the process aspect of it. That process aspect you can always. Now what goes into deeper aspect, how to become sthit prajna, how to be not be moved by impulses. He talks about all those things during the 18 chapters of Bhagavad Gita. That's another thing which is another story, but you don't have to just put it as a kind of you learn Bhagavad Gita. Don't nobody learns and nobody should learn. It is a kind of a desire to know what the things are. Somebody asked this question to me this morning in this group, that an ancient period system of education, and I also learned only a few days back what was the ancient system of education, how specialization used to take, what are the processes, and that is a recorded history about the processes which were taking to education. We didn't have the factory model of education. We had a basic, then specializing in different areas, different work. So you can always don't take it as that you have to teach in the classroom. You have a way of linking. All those thinkers have linked the system to education. All they talked about They were not teaching in the same thing in the classroom in the same manner. They were practicing doing certain. Integrity is one of the issues. Honesty of purpose is one of the issues. That is that previous at the Gita time also. You would find that many things Krishna said with was honesty or what is the kind of emotional not attachment kind of thing. You became objective when we do the research. At time I will share with you, when you do the research many times your biases get into it, and that time you have to think about objectivity. No, they let the even other aspects. So objective things, non-attachment to your ideas. Let us on the relations, that is another aspect he was talking, not at the attempt to the. It was a highly psycho. I gave you Gita psychological aspect. There is a question answer I given about the psycho of analytical aspect of Gita. I give you some quiz. You go through the and you'd enjoy the psychoanalytical aspect of the Gita. There are, that is also important. One is the religion, nirvana, and other. That's a kind of a thing, but that is also at a certain level of life it happens. But the aspect of education, which is also equally that you don't become impulsive, don't become attached to your ideas, and when do research, be objective and very honest about it. That's the kind of a what here Astit Pigna when he says about it is the objectivity and fairness, and at the same time not being by moved by forces, innovation, emotions, etc. So all these are practical. People don't put it only a religious. That's there, but also your psychoanalytical aspect, that group psychology, individual psychology, analytical aspect. He was a greatest, if you look at the in the world, he was a great psychoanalytical person who moved the society in a particular manner. So that's the point of which one can this. But there are discourses written by Vivekanand. One should go through the discourse. And very interesting about Gita, I said that I read and I enjoyed reading the Gita Rahasya by Lokmanya Tilak. It was a big book at that as a student, and you would find that there are certain references that are directly related to education, teaching, learning processes, etc.
So there is another important question. One,
Yes, go ahead.
Dr. Natasa, in
Go
this
ahead.
post-colonial period and age of globalization, how important is nationalism and patriotism?
What is that
Thus, it leads to
question?
more conflict. Huh?
You go ahead with the question.
In this post-colonial period and age of globalization, how
Yeah,
important is nationalism and patriotism? Thus,
you
it
know,
leads to more
yeah,
conflict.
yeah. You know, both are important. You cannot be global without being national, and you cannot be national without seeing what is the all over development in the world. You have to say kind of
Sir, we can't hear you.
contribution go to the global. Let there not be one-sided globalism. There is a both-sided globalism where you can contribute in the process, any field of development, and they can also. There we have to really start working on the research. I always say that every college, every institution should build a research group or research club and try to research on the issues and problems which the immediate society is facing. Therefore, you would find that yes, global and local or global and national are equally global in the sense you first as a citizen of a nation state which has already been there, but at the same you are presently citizen of a global society also. So there may be sometime conflict about it, but there will be more collaboration, cooperation wherever you find your interests of the society are the nation are being questioned. You should restrict to your interests of the society. You should always say the nation first and then global second. So both are important because we are living in a very open global, because technological change, a third industrial revolution has made. That's why I'll come to what we call the multidisciplinary orientation. When I talk about multidisciplinary, you'll get the answer to global and social. Any other question? And then we move to multidisciplinary aspect of it.
Yes, let's go to multidisciplinary, sir, since the time is running.
Yeah, so the time is running. I will, what has happened? The third industry, first industry revolution make the factory model of education. Everybody has to taught a certain level. Also, you must have heard in Germany, one subject is taught in one classroom. At that moment of time, you find almost all the schools would be teaching the same subject at that moment of time. It's a national level curriculum and national level. So that was a factor. But the level of education today, large number of persons are needed to man the machines, man the system of production, distribution, etc., man the extraction of resources, etc. That was first to second industrial revolution that became a, but third industrial revolution became a digitization, and that made the society to feel that yes, up to certain level, this education is required, which is basic. But then we have to try to break the barriers, break the silos of the education process, because without that, the innovation changes could not come. So you would find many of the universities in the western part of the world or developed part of the America particularly, they were experimenting every time. So they said that we'll not have a fixity of subjects taking by this. So three way of the one is that interdisciplinary orientation they should come in terms of mathematics interacting with the economics, mathematics interact with the psychology, and physics interact with the chemistry. So that's sort of interdisciplinary, and from there to multidisciplinary. Most of the uh, Nobel laureate, if you find they look into the problem, that problem might be more focused on chemistry, more focused on physics, they brought about a major change. So you find that was the third industrial revolution. We developed several fields of study. You find the psychometric and psychology, mathematical economics during time, as specializing in certain areas, etc., your sociology of it. So you find that that was breaking the barriers, that problems of the society are multidisciplinary. So we should also create a system of flexibility in the system and make it this way. So they introduce the system of first at the student level. The student can take credit from this course, that course, and then particular credit should be given at particular level of development, and they should be free. That is the first level of student options to decide about what kind of courses credit they would like to have. Second is promoting researches in multidisciplinary oriented, because the problems needed, if you look at the physics needed a problem of medicine science, medical sciences, so there was a biotechnology, bio, all those things broken the barrier, because third industrial revolution started breaking the barrier, and fourth industrial revolution has started the flipping in the classroom, breaking the classroom completely. And coming back to the question which the old one first person asked, getting into the learning, that you learn certain thing you produce, that means going to a particular subject, so breaking the silos, breaking the barriers, and coming to learning certain things. You learn certain things and you try, you learn blockchain, you learn the open AI, you learn something, and they are trying to, so no classroom, no fixity of the. So third industrial revolution broke on the barrier, and many of the fast developing countries which harness this source of technology, third industrial revolution, that was a digital technology, from electricity to and electronics and digital, that was a breaking the barriers of various kind. So now fourth industrial revolution is further breaking the barrier. Maybe after some time you find you get the education institutions of a type, the basic learning you have done it, the mathematics, language, etc. Now you choose to do certain things on Sunday, and you learn. An institution would be built. Already institutions are there. My daughter learned supply chain management from the MIT. I say only that one subject, supply chain management, in this. So there's no others, and they gave micro master of subject on supply. So first area, then they get supply chain management through the blockchain. So there's another specialization. So you would find that these barriers are going to break on fourth industrial revolution very strong. But it doesn't happen everywhere. Our world is highly iniquitous. It is as iniquitous. It happened with the various sources of development of energy. We were still in our India, still you can find we are in first industrial revolution, or even before first industry, where many things are drawn with the human and physical resources. I went to Bihar for certain thing, and they were trying to draw water from the silt from the well, and they put it a pulley here, a wooden pulley, and then and persons were drawing, and that was the kind. And when these people started, they put the pump and drawing the slit and everything. So we are still at that level of pre first industry. We are at the level of second also in smaller town. We are at the level of third industry in the metro town, and we will be in the fourth industry in course. But fact of the matter is this multidisciplinary has come in order to respond to the challenges which the development process needed. So questions were raised about the silos. So USA, you would find the first thing they did was to allow students to take an. Second thing, the more researches on multidisciplinary oriented. Funding was given at large scale in terms of biotechnology, which we also started giving. Funding was given on the use of the physics for the medical uses. You must Doppler effect was basically a effect which was assessing the what is inside, and that Doppler effect was seeing the ball or cricket ball, what force it is coming in other thing. So it became even sports also. And war, most probably it was worst thing was that it was Asian war. I don't know whether you have seen a movie Open Hair. There was a tussle in the system that whether we should use in and Einstein refused that I'm not going to enter into this kind of a use of physics for the purpose of destruction, and therefore there was a tussle between the two scientists doing whether this should be done or not. Other wanted hydrogen. So this is exactly knowledge, and there you find the changes. So education has been a change with the it was not physics was not meant for developing atom, but they did it because that knowledge was available. Then physics, it was not physics alone, it was chemistry also, it was also other aspect of it. So you find that they've broken the silos and not only used for the education development purpose within their society, much more they use for the war machinery. You heard the Kalashnikov, the Second World War was won with other than and the First World War. There's a gun was developed, and that gun became Kalashnikov in Kosovo, and that became an icon for the development. Today also icon for the many other things. So point is that technology, it came through education. No, nothing else. All those process of war machinery development has been, and then they use the war system to subjugate many people in an incentivized manner. If you don't do it, then we'll kill. You can kill, remove the whole. So, so education is now education is basically multidisciplinary oriented. How do you help doing it? That is the real challenge. One of the challenge, give the flexibility to the student to choose whether he changes the mathematics, also in economics, psychometric, sociometric, all those things. That let him. Then you should also give him to fundamental values which we talk today. Now we are not talking values, life skills. Life skills is nothing doing things in an effective manner, integrity, honesty, purpose, time management, relationship, and etc. These are so that as a student, I don't think any time anybody discuss politics when it is not part of the syllabus. Anybody discuss economics in physics without any part of no, economics and physics are very closely linked. Economics and physics and medical sciences are closely linked. Economics and physics are linked. So you find many things are there. So what I have said is the breaking of silos, and now policy is talking about it. How practically it will happen, that would depend on teachers and all of us. But basically, it was the third industrial revolution made this flexibility, and it happened in practice. It is already happening. When I went to MIT to discuss, you would find that my friend Sonolkar, who was a MIT, the IIT Bombay product, he was working in MIT, and he said, "I'm working." He is an engineer by training, but he started working on how best students learn through that digital mode. So he developed the 5 styles of learning of this, and data information will flow through those methods through which you learn best. Today, what WhatsApp is doing, they flow the information which you like most. So he developed a system of self-house. He was basically an engineer, but at the same time developed the method of learning, a method learning through digital mode and digital information flow. If I like to learn more about the Kalashnikov, the information will flow how it will. If I want to learn something about the physics, economics, information flow. If I learn through the method of question answer, the system will flow in accordingly. If I learn step by step, they will give a narrative. If I learn through the problem solving, the information will. So that is the kind of change which came with the multidisciplinary orientation, and therefore the focus is on multidisciplinary. If you really want to handle the problems of society, you have to go into making system more flexible, more oriented toward responding to the social developmental needs. And therefore, and next world which is going to be, whether I'm there, you are there, 1940, the 2041, your I would become very important. Some of the things which were treasury oriented. You keep on writing MSQ, there's multiple choice question, etc. You ask them, they'll give you this. So but it is decision making is yours. That is the level you. Instead of writing 10 times, you decide here I'm lord, like that what you call the Aladdin Kacha, that here now you decide what it is. So development through OpenAI, you are saying that the why people have started questioning OpenAI, and why. So it has other aspect, like any technology has other aspect of it. It is a fake deep, etc. Atom was not meant for destroying, but they destroy. So every technology has a miracle, every technology has other aspect of the structure, and that would continue. And that's what I thought I would share with you on multidisciplinary. One can go about how my discipline should be chosen, how the structure should be done at the school, college level, at the school level. School level, let me share you another story. A student came from America, a friend of my daughter, and she was here in India for 3 months, and she prepared a report on 3 months at her stay and learning and observation, etc. That was taken as his credit or learning. That was evaluated in credit. So that kind of flexibility they already started happening. So observation and learning, understanding, reproducing, writing and expressing. That became, so you have to, the system have to be really more flexible, more advanced in terms of making it more interdisciplinary oriented, multidisciplinary oriented, as well as the kind of a thing which you learn, the thinkers they talked about integrity, honesty of purpose, the using the application of mind for the knowledge which you are having, and that becomes, and then concern for the society, global and local and domestic, national and global, that all those issues would come. That would is the point of this. I thought I'll share with you. I welcome if any other question if you have. It inspires me to ask question, but you must learn to ask question. You must question your teacher at times, because everybody is not knowing everything, and you will know in the process when you question. I share you one very interesting story about the Nobel laureate. I shared many times. We were interviewing in the CEC this Nobel laureate, and then in interview, one of the interviewer asked that, "Sir, tell us how did you achieve this feat of getting Nobel Prize on this chemistry subject?" Then he said that, "Look here, when I used to go to the school, my mother used to tell me that did you ask any good question to your teacher, and that made me to ask question, and asking good questions was most difficult because you should know the subject." And that continued and continued, and I asked question till the time I was doing the research. So questions are in every is very important. Yeah. So a minimum question, if there are 10 people, 50, 40 or 50 people, they come and go. I think there should be a system of coming going. So they should ask some questions and they could show their faces when they are there. Well, thank you. Sangeeta, any other question? Otherwise, we close it.
Is there any other question? Are there? I don't think so, because they have already put up in the chat box many. But if you are attending, that time is also sort of anyone quickly, one or two. If you want to say anything to Professor Sharma, then you're most welcome before closing. Is there anything? I hope there's nothing, sir. And it was very, enlightening, I should say. The session was so enlightening, and you have started with a holistic approach of education, giving the ideas of Vivekananda, then Tagore, then Mahatma Gandhi. Then you give the importance of this interdisciplinary, to give flexibility to the students if you want to bring that very idea. So thank you once again, sir,
Thank you.
for the wonderful session. And then I will be writing to you. I will mail
Thank you.
you, sir. Thank you
Thank you.
once again,
Thank
sir. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you very
Thank you to
much.
the participants. So we are already, time is already, we exit